Welcome everyone to the game between Richard Rapport taking on Praggnanandhaa in the 8th round of the FIDE Grand Swiss 2025. Richard Rapport has not only been a top class player in the world but also has helped Ding Liren as a second in his World Championship matches. And there you see him. The king falls down and Rapport was like, okay, that's what does that mean? Well, in general, this is going to be a very interesting game because Pragg is, in a bit of a shaky space in this tournament. He hasn't been his flawless self, but he just won the last round against Maxim Rothstein and is coming back into his groove. And while Rapport adjusts his pieces, Pragg comes in there and a handshake. The last time they played against each other at the Oos Chess Cup, Rapport created an absolute brilliancy that was praised by people all across the world. Will he manage to do that again? I think Pragg generally struggles against Richard. Knight to f3 played. And Pragg takes his time. A win here for Pragg would mean getting much closer to the top. He plays his pawn to d5. Now d4 would transpose into d4, d5, but he goes c4. And that's an interesting move now because Pragg can push his pawn to d4. He goes e6, playing the solid Queen's Gambit declined setup. And g3 played by Richard, getting to get the bishop out on g2 and short castle. Knight to f6 and bishop to g2. This Reti setup along with pawn to c4 is interesting, and Praggnanandhaa pushes his pawn forward. He goes d4 and Rapport just castles here. It's an ambitious move by Pragg, gaining space, and maybe he can push c5 to get more space there, but he goes knight to c6. And Pragg wants to rapidly, get his bishop out, castle here. Richard plays e3. And now Pragg can push e5. Yes, he pushes his pawn to e5. And, knight takes, pawn takes, and there's pressure here. So he takes here. He wants to open up the e file. The king is still on e8. And pawn to e4 played. So the thing is now, instead of taking here on d4, which is also a playable line, he goes e4, knight g5. And Pragg is in his preparation. He has prepared this line, although this is lesser played. And it is a full pawn sacrifice here because now knight takes e4 is hanging. He goes rook e1 to win the e4 pawn, bishop e7, and you can notice that white's going to win a pawn. What is black's compensation here in such a position? Well, it's the knight on d4. It's the pawn that it's actually stopping from advancing, the pawn on d2. So knight takes knight, and you can castle here. Pragg takes, knight takes on e4, rook takes e4. Seems normal and natural. Yes, he takes, rook takes e4. And now Pragg can just castle in this position. He goes bishop f5, and that's a very, very direct move because if you move your rook away, knight c2 is just forking stuff here. Rook e5 played. Now knight c2 means you lose the bishop. Rook takes f5, and look at Richard Rapport's time. He has 1 hour 41 minutes. Pragg plays queen d6 and he takes a good solid 12 minutes. He's down to 1 hour 10 minutes here. Attacking the rook on e5, and rook sacrifices an exchange. Oh my goodness. Rook takes f5. Pragg chops off. Knight takes f5, and this is insane, and this is all never played before. Bishop takes b7. This seems like Richard Rapport's deep opening preparation. He's attacking the rook now. Pragg has a choice between rook b8 and rook d8. He chooses to centralize his rook, which makes a lot of sense. Rook on d8 is quite strong. And a check now. And you have to kind of move your king because queen d7 is met with bishop c6. So king f8 played. And now knight to c3 played. The knight comes out eyeing the d5 square. And Pragg goes h5. That's a good move because the rook would take a lot of time to come out from here. So Pragg is like, why don't I activate my rook along the file itself here? Bishop e4 played, attacking the knight on f5. And now queen to e6. He attacks the bishop. And the next move is knight to d6. Man, this game is so exciting and so complex. But look at Richard Rapport's time. He has 1 hour 24 minutes. While Pragg is down to 40 minutes on the clock. Even 37, by the way. He comes back and plays his knight to d6. It's not going to be an easy game for Pragg. That's for sure. Especially time-wise. Bishop comes to g2. And queen to e1 played. Now, queen e1 check. The bishop comes back to f1. And black pushes pawn to h4. Very strong move. Trying to take advantage of the king side space. h4, g4 played. And h3. Wow. The thing is now Richard is going queen a7. The problem here is if you come back, I simply take and knight c4 and then this is hanging. So that's the reason why Richard has to go on the offensive. Defense is not an option. Now g4 is hanging. This is starting to look scary for white. f3, there's a pin here. He defends it, but look at the queen. It can come back here. And now Pragg needs to find a very insane move. He finds it. Knight to b7. What a move. If you take bishop c5 and white is busted. And bishop c5 is a massive threat. So knight e4 stopping that. And now Pragg is down to 4 minutes while Rapport has 1 hour 18 minutes. And look at what Rapport is doing. He takes the pawn. Here Pragg with 3 minutes on the clock. He comes back. He writes the move and immediately plays. Well, that's insane. Queen f2, putting extra pressure on Pragg, not just on the board, and gets up and starts moving. Queen d1 with just 2 minutes 40 seconds. And this is pinned here. This is pinned. Queen e2. Now either your rook hangs or you need to trade queens. Pragg comes back. He again finds the best move. So much pressure. Pragg has 1 minute 2 seconds. How is he even playing under so much pressure? Takes. And now, king f2 again moving quickly. Asking the question to Pragg, what do you want to do? Knight to c5 played by Praggnanandhaa. Okay, if you take bishop c5, black would be very happy. So he goes knight c3, attacking the rook. And knight to d3 played here by Praggnanandhaa. So you take, rook takes d3. And now finally the bishop can develop. I think bishop e3 and white should be okay. Knight d5 played by Rapport. He wants to take on e7 and play bishop g5 check and win the rook. Bishop goes to d6. And a good move by Pragg, putting pressure on the h2 pawn. Bishop g5 attacking the rook on h4. The rook comes back to h8. And now king e2, the rook on d3 is hanging. He has to come back, but it is going to be trapped now. Bishop e3 nets you the rook. So you can try for bishop e5 stuff, but Pragg just goes in and picks up the pawn. This is move 34. Pragg has now 1 minute. He's been playing on 1 minute for close to 10 moves now. Comes back bishop to d6. And if you look here after bishop e3, which is going to simply trap the rook on d4. Now there's no squares to go to. Pragg has to sack it for the knight. White is now a pawn up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, while black has only 1, 2, 3, 4. However, the thing is that in such a position, white is not, I mean, the h pawn is a big menace for white. So h2 played, and by the way, Rapport from 1 hour plus has come down to 17 minutes. King f3 played, and rook h3 check is coming in here. But it's a draw offer made by Rapport to Pragg, and Pragg accepts it. The position is equal, and what a game. Look at that reaction by Pragg. He was stretched to the limit there for sure by Richard Rapport, and some insane preparation. And look at Pragg. He's asking like whether he played correct or not, and I think they are talking about some queen d1, queen e2. Oh, it's amazing how they, and Pragg is like, no, that's a computer line that I am never going to find here. It's amazing how modern chess has used computer lines and kind of expanded the horizon of what's playable and what's not, right? Like, for example, the line that Pragg played today, it was, he's a pawn down, and the modern engines give it as equal or maybe very slightly better for white. So it gives him the confidence to go for such lines. And so while many people think that engine is reducing the field of play because most of the lines have now been analyzed to equality, it's also expanding the play. There's lines which were never really possible to be played before, which no one really thought about, are now actually possible. They can be played, and that's what I feel is the beauty of modern chess. The opening theory is shifting. It's no longer going in the direction of long preparation, but shorter lines, smaller lines, one game ideas. And there are plenty of one game ideas that you can keep playing if you are working hard enough, if you have a nice team with you. And these are all the things that I'm pretty sure Pragg has, which is why he's excelling. And this very nice animated session of discussion ended. And I think Pragg and Rapport had a good time with each other playing this game. Kudos to Pragg for surviving Rapport's insane preparation and still staying in with a chance to finish in top 2.